Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
If you blinked, you would have missed Marco Kasper making his NHL debut. At least we got it.
Did he play any games that we could, surmise?
Yeah, the Toronto game was good. Like, I think we got a lot from that, but it was one game. And it's the right call. He's hurt. Shut him down, make sure he's ready. I don't know what this means for the World Championships in the offseason, but there's no need to push on an injury for an end of season that means less than nothing for the Red Wings. But it is still, what did you say, Brad? We can't have a single nice thing for 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's like, can we just have fun for 2 weeks in a row?
No, absolutely not. And shame on you for even thinking about that.
The only benefit of this is so many Red Wings are getting hurt. The fact that we're in the building on Saturday, there's a non-zero chance we suit up.
Yeah. If you sit in the lower bowl, you could be pulled onto the bench.
Yeah. You want to be Adam Ernie centerman tonight? Come on down.
Oh my God.
Well, folks, we're just a few days away from being at the LCA. Winged Wheel Podcast Day at the LCA is Saturday, April 8th, and we have some news about that. But for now, welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, here to talk to you about all things Detroit Red Wings hockey, the world of the NHL, some drama going on, prospects, and more. I am one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad Crisco.
And I'm Evan.
On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, we're going to be giving you an update on Detroit's two most recent games, one of which was played by, Marco Kasper played in for his NHL debut. Both of them were wins against Canadian teams, which always feels good. And we'll give you some updates on the Red Wings, Kasper's being shut down for the year after that single game. Sebastian Cossa has some more accolades to his name. We'll talk about Alexandre Doucet a little bit. We have a prospect profile for you, some NHL news, and whatever else we get to before overtime. Before that, I want to let you know, for all of you 500 ticket holders to Winged Wheel Podcast Day at the LCA, the order of events goes like this. 11:30 doors open to the LCA pre-game. The game is at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be there. We'll have a table in the concourse. We'll tweet out the location on the day of. It's a Winged Wheel Podcast table. We'll have merch and giveaways for everyone to grab, whether or not you're a ticket holder for Winged Wheel Podcast Day at the LCA. We'll all watch the game together, and then post-game in the Budweiser Beer Garden, which is attached to the arena, any ticket holders to the event enter. You'll have your ticket scanned. That's where you're going to get your special edition Red Wings and Winged Wheel Podcast co-branded hat. I nearly fall over every time I see that. It is probably the coolest thing that's ever happened to us.
Makes me sick.
Yeah, but in a good way, but also like it feels.
Makes me sick.
Yeah, that's where you get your hat. We're going to have a meet and greet, mix and mingle, and also that's where we're going to be recording a live episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast. There's going to be a cash bar available for some more refreshments. And it's going to be a great time. The indoor and outdoor space will be available. There will be speakers pushing sound throughout. So even if you aren't, directly in front of us or you're outside, fingers crossed, knock on wood, the weather is looking nice. You'll be able to hear us and enjoy the show. And that is going to happen post-game. We're looking at around 4 to 6. Beyond that, because we do traditionally do like a pre-game show and then a post-game get-together at Harry's, because everything is post-game this time, we don't have anything formally planned. It is opening weekend for the Tigers in Detroit, so it's already going to be bustling. So we'll probably congregate somewhere, but stay tuned on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod if we find a secondary location, and we'll let you know about that. But for now, if you're a ticket holder, Budweiser Beer Garden post-game. And for all of you who want to come say hi, we'll be in the LCA concourse at doors open at 11:30 on Saturday, April 8th. And for those of you who don't know and are interested in what we're talking about, Winged Wheel Podcast Day at the LCA is a partnered event between us, the Winged Wheel Podcast, and the Detroit Red Wings, where we host a live podcast. We all watch the game together. We sit in Winged Wheel Podcast sections. And most importantly, a portion of the proceeds from every ticket sold benefits the Jamie Daniels Foundation. Ken Daniels, of course, will be at our live recording. Speaking of the Jamie Daniels Foundation, Thursday, April 13th, 6:15 p.m. at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, Comedy Night of Hope. To benefit the Jamie Daniels Foundation, get your tickets, jamiedanielsfoundation.org. Special thanks to Cranks Catering for sponsoring the event and providing a wonderful dinner. It's a great show, a lot of laughs. Really, really encourage you to make it out there. And again, it supports a great cause. You guys ready? 4th time doing this. Can you believe that?
It's crazy.
Well, 3rd for you. And we'll see if you actually, one of my friends actually texted.
I got a little bit of congestion going on. You're going to hear it throughout the episode. We'll see. It all depends sort of on how Tiger's doing the first couple days of the Masters.
If Tiger's leading through 2 days,
I'm not coming.
I guarantee you.
I won't be there.
Brad and I are going to have to drive to Evan's house, and we do have your address because you made a mistake by giving it to us, and we'll have to grab each of us grab an ear and drag you into our car.
I'll have no critical analysis of that game at all.
So, Evan's obviously talking about the Masters, but we are genuinely really looking forward to it and excited to see you all there. All right, the Red Wings beat the Leafs, beat the Habs. I don't care, tanking or not. It is fun to see the Leafs fans pissed off. It was a little bit sad after the Habs game. That you want to see a tanking team. That team is tanking.
Well, we've been there.
Yes.
I'm not going to rip on Habs fans because I fully understand.
Oh, absolutely.
Someone on YouTube summed it up so nicely. They said, we've had a lot of games this year where we say, look how far we still need to go. But the game against Montreal was sort of a look how far we've come type game. And I thought that's sort of summed it up quite well because woof.
Let's talk about the Toronto game first. First and foremost, let's address what everyone wants to hear about. Marco Kasper's NHL debut. We were recorded right before the puck drop, as the game happened on Sunday. But let's talk about the actual game as it happened. Marco Kasper, started playing with Raymond and Kopp, and Derek Lalonde and Steve Yzerman jumped right into the water with him. What was your analysis of his performance?
He held his own. I wouldn't say he did anything spectacular for the game. He was fairly unnoticeable outside of one event, which we will talk about. Yep. But for a NHL debut against a team like the Leafs, playing on the second line, and the team they were playing against, I take not really noticing him a ton as a huge positive, because it means he wasn't out of place. He wasn't getting caved. He wasn't getting walked. He didn't look like he was a step behind everybody else on the ice. And, being a step behind the Leafs wouldn't be the biggest shame in the world, given some of the talent they have, even though they weren't all playing. But he looked like he fit right in. So, outside of one event, I don't think there was a ton to write home about, but that should be taken as a positive.
Yeah, I don't want to say he was unnoticeable. Like, he wasn't a ghost. This is all qualified with the fact that we were all paying attention pretty closely.
Oh, yeah. Every time he was on the ice, I was acutely aware of it, but in the grand scheme of things.
And I do think he made a couple really impressive plays that didn't lead to anything, but he was in the right spot. You could definitely see the kind of, if the puck is anywhere near the net, that guy is barreling to the net, and he does not give a shit who's in the way kind of player, which was good. There was a point shot, I can't remember from who, maybe Ole Maatta, where Kasper, it kind of floated through, and if it wasn't cleared off the line, really, really clutch by the defenseman, and then I think Samsonov got it after. Kasper would have been there to bank it in. So, again, we're talking about plays that led to nothing, but you could see him doing the right things as a pro. But, yeah, in my mind, it was a typical, that was a good start, first game for a rookie. We'll talk about the scrum in a minute, but he did what he had to do. Didn't blow anyone out of the water, wasn't first start of the night, but didn't look out of place. It was standard fare, and that's, I think, a really, really good outcome for a first game for Marco Kasper. When you look at him, you can see this kid's 18 years old.
Yes, I've never felt so old in my life.
Oh, man.
Well, I mean, when I try to get out of bed in the morning, I feel old, but yeah, he
has such a baby face.
He has a baby face for sure.
We're going to say this every year as every new Red Wings prospect comes in.
It's only going to get worse.
How has this podcast grown? We just really reckon with our own mortality a little bit more every season.
Yeah.
Without realizing it.
There was a couple shifts that game where Moritz Seider was the second oldest player on the ice.
That's horrifying.
But yeah, any additional thoughts on Kasper's game?
No, I think I agree with both of you, what you guys said. Wasn't a liability at all, and Toronto wasn't able to really exploit the fact that we have a first game rookie stepping into the lineup. So, you know what? In terms of, grading Marco Kasper's first game, I think it really couldn't have gone much better other than, just no one's going to torch the Leafs. Like, no one's...
But the Leafs are good at it.
Yeah. Oh, in the playoffs, Game 7, yeah. I mean, like, how many guys come into their first game and just light the world on fire? Not that many. So the fact that he's already played a full season, it's his first time in North America, like, really, can't be upset about anything in that game.
So there was a scrum that happened. Kasper was on a rush and basically followed the play behind the net. He was there with Liljegren, and I don't know who started it, but Kasper certainly escalated it and gave Liljegren a shot. And very much it was, this guy does not take any shit. Like, he absolutely is happy to mix it up. Even as an babyface 18-year-old who's underweight, doesn't have pro-level muscle to his frame yet, did not care, was throwing it like in the mix in that scrum. And then who comes in other than Mo Seider and Simon Edvinsson, who were, I think, in the middle of a line change, and so they were on the ice together. And then Kasper's teammates, one of them being Lucas Raymond. So that's the entire future core of the Red Wings.
The last 4 first-round picks.
Yeah, somewhere from the stand, Sebastian Cossa was running in, diving over the glass.
Last 4, I shouldn't say first-round picks, last 4 first picks.
Yes. And then you have Andrew Kopp there, like, hello, fellow teens. Like, but that was...
The chaperone. He's the chaperone.
It was... Immediately every Red Wings fan was watching, like, and just got filled with joy. Meanwhile, Leafs fans are like objectively looking at the situation, like, oh, he should have got a penalty for this scrum, or like Bunting's misconduct, whatever. And every Red Wings fan was like, sweet, fight with the kids, this is awesome. And then Bunting, who was already being Michael Bunting, and I have some thoughts about the way he plays in a little bit here. He was skating away and happened to, he knew what he was doing, just drag, I think it was Seider or Edvinsson's stick in his feet, just to get him more riled up. And then Edvinsson and Seider skating towards him, wanting a piece of him. I'm like, that's like 19 feet of defenseman who wants to kill you right now. Like, that has to be horrifying to see.
Hey, if we give Marco Kasper credit for, not picking his spots and just, taking on whatever's in front of him. Yeah, Michael Bunting, if you're going to step in front of any 2 Red Wings, I don't care how young those are. Those probably aren't the 2 to do it with.
No. I was explaining to Mel the other day how much, like, why weight divisions exist in combat sports, and reach advantage is also a huge thing. Yep. Like, even if Edvinsson isn't that strong, like, he could be in the parking lot and still grab you by your collar.
Didn't Edvinsson train in mixed martial arts?
Yeah, he told Daniela Brusset in
I think I actually remember seeing a clip of it leading into the draft.
I'm just saying, the ref should have let him go.
I wonder if Michael Bunting knew that.
No.
Can we talk about that quickly?
I would love to talk about that.
Michael Bunting he gave Jake Walman a pretty, hard hit along the boards and on the edge, but fair, clean hit. Nothing wrong with it. Walman came back and gave him a cross check from behind, and it was a cross check. Bunting fell. I don't think he exaggerated how he fell. I'm sure he wasn't like trying to brace. He just got knocked forward. And then Walman did that lean over it with like the additional shove kind of thing. That's when you cross check a guy, that's often the follow up. And then Bunting did the, 3-act play flail forward, and that's where he got his embellishment. It's like he already drew the minor. Now you're going to tag yourself with the embellishment call. And it was the second, cross check, the second fall that got it for him. That was fair. They called it clean. That guy, and I've seen this said a lot, and I never really paid attention to it, but holy shit, he does not stop yapping to the refs. I understand he's trying to play the role of the pest, but you look at the difference between him and Tkachuk or him and Marchand, like they direct their tomfoolery towards the other team, and they know that ultimately they need the refs on their side. Why are you going out there and antagonizing the refs? Like, he does not shut up.
Doesn't earn you any favors.
How has Toronto, I'm sure they have actually done it, but if I'm the captain or the coach or any of the coaches on Toronto, grabbing him by the shoulders and saying, Michael, shut up. Shut up.
Other teams will eat him alive on that in the playoffs. Like, everybody knows that he just becomes unstable when things don't go the way he thinks that they should. So teams will eat that up.
And he does draw a lot of penalties. Like, he's good at that part of it, but he doesn't know when to stop. Like, you actually had a really good explanation for it, Brad, but pre-show. I'll leave you to.
Well, before I get to my point, just to kind of, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I was listening to a Toronto media personality talk about it today. And last season, Michael Bunting was either first or second in the NHL in penalty drawn differential. So how many penalties he's drawn versus taken. He was near the top of the league. He's only got a +3 difference this year because the refs are
sick of it.
Sick of it. He's not getting the benefit of the doubt. He's not getting the favorable calls because either they think he was diving, which is why he got such a differential last year, or they're, sick of the yapping. You don't know what. The Leafs personality that I was listening to is also talking about how this happened to Nazem Kadri early in his career, where the refs got sick of it, and the same thing happened to the point where like the Leafs coaches had to speak up and go, like, listen, we get it. He has a rep, but he's getting tackled out there. You have to call something. So something similar is happening to Bunting, and it's his own fault, whatever the reason may be.
Yeah, like, I agree. When a guy gets a reputation, refs are human, and you can see it play out, and it's objectively not fair. But the refs are going to continue to be human, so rather than whine about it, you have to get the guy to dial it back.
Because Michael Bunting is trying to play the agitator role. He's trying to play the Brad Marchand, Brady Tkachuk role. And I say this honestly, he sucks at it. He's terrible at it. Because, again, and we've talked about Brad Marchand at length on this podcast, and I'll repeat it again. I respect the hell out of Brad Marchand for how much he leans into his bullshit and how much he owns up and accepts it, and in a lot of cases has fun with it.
My favorite annoying Brad by far.
He knows what he's doing. His team knows what he's doing. The refs know what he's doing. And the other team knows what he's doing. And everybody accepts it for what it is because he'll run around, do the bullshit. He'll yap to the other team. The ref will give him his penalty, and he'll go, yep, skate to the box. Another team challenges him to a fight. Yep, no problem. Let's go. He knows what he's doing because he wants to escalate the other team's anger level to a very significant level to throw them off their game. And he remains way down here, calm, cool, collected, having fun. Mm-hmm. That is the point of the agitator role. You are trying to rile up and piss off the other team. Bunting tries to do the exact same shit, and he succeeds in getting the other team very pissed off and riled up. And then Bunting himself goes to an even higher level than that. He can't keep himself in check. So the whole accomplishment of getting his opponent, getting under their skin, is completely offset by he seems to be angrier by the situation than everybody else on the ice. And then he starts speaking to the refs about it. He starts whining. He ends up taking the penalty. He does everything right to get to the point and then just completely cancels it out himself. It's just stupid. Like, I understand the agitator role. It's an effective role if you're good at hockey. And, Michael Bunting's at least good enough to play on the Leafs top line. So,
yeah,
he can do it. And he just... It's funny to watch because he initiates everything and then gets angry with how it goes.
He could be way more effective. He is an effective player. He could be way more effective if he just gets that closing out portion of what it takes to be an agitator that you just described.
Yeah, when Brad Marchand gets punched in the face in a scrum, you know what he generally does?
Smiles.
Laughs.
Yeah.
Got you now.
Yeah.
And usually he'll look over at the ref. Oh, yeah, they got that penalty. And then, whatever. And then
Bunting is immediately firing obscenities at the ref. And there have been a lot of points made within Toronto media, Toronto fandom, where they're like, this is a problem. Like, this guy actually isn't getting fair calls, like you described, Brad. And I say again, I don't think they're necessarily wrong, but I think this is a futile effort to ask the refs to do anything else when this guy just does not stop yapping at them. Like, he needs to change the way he goes. Otherwise, he's going to be a liability in the playoffs. And speaking of which, Toronto's goaltending that game, woof. I want to say I hope Matt Murray's okay. He was out day-to-day. Lucas Raymond blew a tire and took out Matt Murray from behind, and he hit his head off the ice. It wasn't intentional by Raymond, but obviously, effing sucks. Matt Murray has a hard time staying healthy, and that's not his fault at all.
No.
So I understand it was accidental. I'm surprised there wasn't a penalty on that play.
Yeah, I mean, you still took out the goalie.
Yeah,
no complaints here.
You have to be responsible for your own stick. It's not like they were both skating in the same path. Like, Matt Murray was just standing in his crease. Like, Raymond has to be responsible for staying on his skates. Anyhow, Murray left the game and Samsonov came in. They both weren't particularly good. Maatta started the game, was
with a breakaway.
which naturally,
Yep.
breakaway goal, Ole Maatta, offensive dynamo, and then Jan Tinbergen with it was a from range shot. I think it was a stoppable shot, but still a good one. Made it 2-1. Dylan Larkin, similar, I think a stoppable shot, but a good one. Made it 3-1. Tavares did get a power play goal to bring it within 3-2, and then Larkin actually got two more. One of them banked off of him. And Brad, you made a funny joke about him being in the Tigers batting order. That cracked me up.
Oh, yeah, because Tigers are the Tigers, and he whacked that thing out of the air and got good wood on it and put it in the net. Like, that at least puts him 6th, 7th on the batting order for the Tigers right now.
He needs something to do in the spring. That was part of why he got a hefty contract. Like, hey, you're going to flip to the other side of Illich Companies. You're going to play for the Tigers now. And then Larkin got the empty netter with his family in the stands with his Nana, which was nice. Got the hat trick. And that brought him back up to a point per game, I believe. Player of the year. Yeah, so all in all, you'll take a 5-2 win for the Red Wings over the Leafs. Understanding where the Leafs are and in a playoff position and the Red Wings aren't, it's never a bad time to beat the Leafs, tank or not.
Nothing like throwing another stone of doubt into the pond.
Oh,
I'm sure the Leafs themselves don't care at all, but it's just one for the fans. It's just one more in the memory bank.
Oh no, the city of Toronto cares a lot after that game. Since the bunting incident, they have been melting down. Have you seen all the articles and everything going up about the bunting incident and the bunting penalty differential and are the Leafs getting screwed by the rat? Like, it's truly a sight to behold.
This is why certain pockets of fandom and media in Toronto have a reputation. Because how is this what you're talking about before the most important playoff series in your team's modern era? I don't know.
I wonder what Steve Simmons is up to this week.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out. Takeaway from that game, Simon Edvinsson played just about leading, if not tie, or just close to second place for most time on ice for the Wings across all players.
Yeah, because he was the most tenured Grand Rapids Griffin defenseman playing that game.
Yeah, I understand why. At this point in the season, Edvinsson is playing so much and dealing with injury, and they don't exactly have a full complement of top NHL defensemen. But Simon Edvinsson playing 22-25, second most minutes of any other Red Wing on the ice in a game against Toronto in his first season, his 5th NHL game, I think that was. That's a good sign.
It's a really good sign. He looks very comfortable out there. He's still wish he'd play with a bit more pace, but he looks good.
This is going to be, it's a good example. I like these little mini samples because you can see a lot of where players are at in terms of the type of game they play and their skill and the way their brain works. But conditioning and strength really shows off the disparity between guys who are approaching the NHL and NHL regulars. Anyhow, that's a win over the Leafs. And then the Habs. 5-0 Red Wings win.
Didn't know they played that game in a museum.
My goodness, that's probably the quietest 5-0 Red Wings win I've ever seen in my life. Like that, if you need any indication of what losing does to a fan base, there is no more of a rabid, intense, like a 100 out of 10 energy level fan base than the Montreal Canadiens fans in the Bell Center. And that place was quieter than a museum.
Sad.
Ever the poet.
That's
You went from casting one more stone into the pond of doubt to sad.
That's what 10 years of French in public school get you.
Thoughts on that win? Lucas Raymond displayed a fantastic shot. David Perron with 2 goals and an assist. Matt Luff,
Luff man,
scored, and then Joe Veleno, who I think had a great game, tipped in a Jake Walman point shot. And Ville Husso got a shutout in his return to play.
Who's a good boy?
Do you hate us yet? Do you regret doing this podcast?
Yeah, you know what? Funny, I didn't think it'd be April 5th, 8 years after we started it, but it actually
It took
is.
this
Yeah,
long, eh?
Yeah.
This was the breaking point.
Yeah, I just checked my notes and they say, "Get the hell out of my house, both of you."
That game was great and awful. Montreal is so bad.
It really was the look how far we've come realization to me, because Red Wings have played a lot of good teams lately, and it's just like, they beat Toronto, blah blah blah, and so a lot of the games is like, we're so far away from anything, and then you play teams like Montreal and it's helps provide a little bit of perspective.
Yeah.
Like you watch parts of that game, and obviously the Perron breakaway was a pretty good defensive breakdown. He didn't score on it, but the Andrew Kopp breakaway. If you just watch the series of events that led to Andrew Kopp's breakaway, I'm not sure a junior B team does what Montreal did there. It was hilariously bad.
Who, maybe it was the Andrew Kopp breakaway. There was a stretch pass from below the goal line. Was it Jordan Osterley?
Was Osterley to Perron.
That was a great pass.
Yeah, that.
He was also factored in
that should not happen at the NHL level.
No.
But Osterley had a good game. He also factored into the other passing play that led to a goal. He looked good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he also almost had his own goal that he just missed the net on when the Montreal defender literally passed a slow roller right through the high slot in his own zone that Osterley just kind of looked almost surprised was there for him.
Yeah. If you want an idea of just how far away the Red Wings were from being leaders in the Connor Bedard lottery this year, look how bad Montreal was. There are 4 teams below them in the standings right now.
And don't forget that Detroit, they were basically playing the Laval Rocket, but Detroit was also fielding like 6 Grand Rapids Griffins from this year. So
as they have been.
It was, a half AHL, half NHL game equally. And oof.
As I said it last episode, I did that thing Evan hates, and I tweeted out what I said on the episode after. I'm going to repeat it now. The Red Wings aren't doing anything other than what they should be doing end of season. I guess you could maybe say, oh, yeah, you should have shut down Husso for the season and just kept Ned up as an emergency call-up, played Hellberg a little bit more, but they're icing quite a few AHLers any given night, and they're playing Edvinsson and Kasper, like other Toronto and Pittsburgh and whoever else these teams have every excuse to beat Detroit, and they didn't. Like, you can't ask the coach or the players to do anything other than go out there and compete. That's literally their job. They're paid to do it. And yes, it's disappointing to move further away from a higher draft pick, and if you want to go completely pie in the sky, the Connor Bedard lottery, but I don't know. For me, I can only be so frustrated. We've also been doing this for 8 years, and this is just how it goes every time Detroit makes a late season push, but it is what it is. Like,
maybe this is the year where we get the win over Montreal that solidifies our draft position that wins us the lottery.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe we fall into that exact sweet spot this time.
I've been hurt once. What's 6 more times?
The hockey gods are rubbing their hands right now. That's the Red Wings couple of games. They have 2 more coming up before the next time we talk. Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern on April 6th against Buffalo, which is a key lottery standings game. Maybe not, actually.
Buffalo's still in the wild card mix.
If Buffalo beats Detroit, that is doubly good for Detroit because it pushes Detroit down the standings. Better draft pick, better lottery odds. But Buffalo could push the Islanders out, which would improve Detroit's other first-round draft pick. And then Saturday, Winged Wheel Podcast Day at the LCA, the Pittsburgh Penguins on the 8th. That's a 1 p.m. game, and it's the exact same story as Buffalo. These are 2 very impactful games.
If you like playing spoiler, these are 2 big games.
And if you like draft picks, these are 2 big games.
Yeah.
Really, you can't be mad either way.
That's right.
And we'll be back with you on Sunday. Some more Red Wings news. Like we mentioned at the top of the show, Marco Kasper came into his NHL debut with a injury that he was nursing from the SHL playoffs recently, and it's a lower body injury. They initially hoped to have him back after the Montreal game for like the Buffalo or Pittsburgh game, maybe. Obviously, Marco Kasper desperately wanted to play at Winged Wheel Podcast Day at the LCA, but unfortunately, it wasn't to be. They've shut him down for this season to get him ready for next year.
This is Michael Bunting's fault.
Did he do it?
I don't know.
But we'll just blame him for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, it's disappointing. I would have liked to have seen more from Marco Kasper, especially because he had such a great first step in the NHL, but all this is it's taken away a bonus nice thing. It's more important for Kasper to be not just ready for next offseason. It's important for him to be as healthy as soon as possible because he has some training to do and bulking up and conditioning to do ahead of next offseason. So, this time for a rookie hoping to make the team at a training camp, like this is exactly when you want to be going balls to the wall to get ready. While you're 18 and your body's elastic and you can afford to grind for 12 straight months. That sounds terrible to me, but that's why I'm not in the NHL. And additional Red Wings news in the world of prospects. Sebastian Cossa continues to thrive in the ECHL. His turn of performance has been phenomenal, and he was named the ECHL Goalie of the Month. His stat line, he was 6-1-1 with a 1.73 goals against average, a 944 save percentage, and a shutout in that time. Cossa has been absolutely stellar for the Toledo Walleye. It's a continuation of what we've been saying, but this was the result you wanted to see from Cossa after he landed in the ECHL and kind of stuck there.
The important thing is we still won the Maatta trade.
So far. Don't jinx it, because we've won the Maatta trade a couple times now.
It only needs to stick once.
Yeah, that needle keeps moving. And then I want to talk about another prospect. The other night, Alexandre Doucet, I think it was last night actually, he scored a natural hat trick in a span of under 8 minutes and 30 seconds for the Halifax Mooseheads in the QMJHL. He has just been scoring and scoring and scoring in the Q, and for a recent Red Wings, he's a recent Red Wings undrafted signing. Great sign to see. I wanted to add some context because we've had some questions come in via replies and DMs saying, why isn't this a bigger deal that this kid is scoring at this rate? Like, is he going to be a 30-goal scorer in the NHL? So let's give a little bit of background as to what it means to be an overager in the QMJHL and how this might translate to the pro level.
The overwhelmingly likely scenario is nothing. It will not translate. That is what happens 99 out of 100 times with overage, high-scoring players in the Q, in the O, in the WHL. Because obviously 20, 21-year-olds in the CHL going up against a bunch of 16, 17, 18-year-olds is going to have a significant advantage. And also if they've made it to that point in their junior hockey career without being drafted, generally speaking, there's a reason. Now, this isn't to say it never works out. Joe Hicketts was an undrafted free agent who got a cup of tea in Detroit. And anytime you get an undrafted free agent who even makes the NHL at all, you're doing well there. Yanni Gourde is probably the best example of an undrafted free agent to come out of the Q specifically and have a successful career. So it is possible. The key thing to remember here is Doucet is showing some very exciting signs, and there is absolute reason for optimism. The odds are still stacked against him, but it doesn't matter because he was a free asset. The Red Wings did not need to give up anything in a trade to get him. They did not need to use a draft pick to get him. They just got him for a contract. Here's some money. You play for us now. And he went great.
Yeah, the defending in the QMJHL, the amount of times I watch those defense and I'm like, oh, they are not getting a Gatorade from the vending machine from their parents after that. Like
no.
Some atrocious defending. And like you said, Brad, overager, high scoring league. It's not akin to like Evan playing me in like a skins match in golf during his men's league, but
it would be close.
If you're playing younger guys, and we haven't had this conversation yet, and we probably will in the future. It's kind of why the QMJHL is looking to ban fighting, is because you have like 21-year-olds or sometimes 16, 17-year-olds. Like there's a big physical difference between that. That said, reasons for optimism. He's a high scoring player. Like he is succeeding in that league. He's a high scoring player, and you never know. Guys are late bloomers. Like you mentioned, Brad, it's not a rule that you have to go by, and it does sometimes pan out. It's a free asset. It does not hurt to do, and it's certainly better than using a pick on a guy who's not producing in a similar league. So there's no problem at all with it. I don't think you have any. If you're a Red Wings fan and you're excited by the kid, absolutely go for it. But I would say temper expectations to if you're expecting this to be a guaranteed thing in the AHL or beyond.
Yeah, what did Maatta score in the Q when he was like 17? He had 50 goals. So
his draft plus 1 year, he was at literal goal per game in the regular season and playoffs.
Yeah, so there you go.
If Alexandre Doucet turns into Anthony Maatta, that is a phenomenal signing.
Is there a more frustrating Red Wing in recent history than Anthony Maatta?
I'm sure there is.
Definitely, 1,000%. Oh my God! Yeah.
In terms of talent, like how much? Oh well.
Can I say Jake Verona?
Yeah, Zadina. Yeah, maybe that was a stupid question.
Yeah. Hey, how far back do you want to go? You remember Thomas Yurko?
I'm trying to be a little bit happy this episode.
Brad's ruining it.
You're both ruining it.
Yeah, we are both ruining it.
I said there was reasons for optimism with Doucet.
That is Red Wings news. Again, we're excited to see how these next two games go, because no matter which way you cut it, there's going to be a positive outcome. Either the Red Wings are winning games or their Islanders pick and their own pick is better. Okay, let's get into today's prospect profile. Last episode, we talked about a prospect that was named in our good friend Max Bultman of the Athletic Detroit's mock draft. And this one, we'll talk about the second player that he named in that mock draft with the hypothetical Islanders pick. So we'll continue to link the article to that mock draft. We encourage you to give it a read. Max's work is always excellent in the description of this episode. But let's talk about none other than Dimitriy Simashev, left-handed defenseman, and one out of Russia, out of Yaroslavl. I'm saying that wrong. 6'4", so familiar to the Red Wings. But what do you make of Simashev?
First of all, I'll get this out of the way, but because it's not a super important talking point, but I want to make it. Max, I love you, but please, I really hope the Red Wings don't draft a left-handed defenseman with their 2 first-round picks.
I'm sure as Max was typing that, he could see your face like melting.
If there's someone talented enough to make the reach, of course, I don't think Simashev is that guy, which we'll get into. But yeah, oh my God, we need scoring and right-handed shooting defenseman. But either way, Simashev, for me with him, my biggest compliment of him is also my biggest criticism of him, so you can take that whichever way you want. He is pretty good at everything. He is amazing at nothing. Like he's that jack of all trades, master of none. Pretty good skater, probably above average. Can definitely move the puck, has decent enough handles to, do what he needs to do with it. Not a ton of offense, but there are those indications that there could be something more there. He just hasn't unlocked it. So if you pick Simashev in the first round, you're hoping there's a bit of a Moritz Seider syndrome there, where it's like, okay, he has it, we just haven't seen it because of reasons X, Y, or Z. Now, those reasons aren't as apparent as they were with Seider's situation going into the draft. Otherwise, he'd be going top 5. So keep that in mind. And keep in mind, the Mo Seider, just unlocking the offense after the draft is a very rare scenario. So even though it's possible with defensemen, you never, ever bank on it. That all being said, it could happen with Simashev. So if the Red Wings had a need for a left-handed defenseman, I could see it, and I understand the appeal of a 6'4" defenseman who can kind of do everything pretty well. He's not there for me, at least not this high in the first round, to the point where the Red Wings are getting them with either of their first-round picks. But I definitely understand the appeal.
Max made a point in his article that I want to call out, which is that if any of the Red Wings prospects that are currently, listed as left-handed shooting defensemen can successfully be right-handed or right side D-men at the pro level in the AHL and NHL, then that it doesn't make it so painful to draft a left-handed defenseman.
But we don't know that yet.
You don't know that yet, of course. I agree with your assessment. I have a lot more watching to do on Simashev, and I don't know whether that's because I'm undecided. I do agree that he doesn't stand out in any single area to the point where I'm excited about a mid-round pick. Is it crazy to say that if you're looking at Simashev as your best possible option around where you're picking, like that's what you're projecting based on what you think the teams around you are going to do? I'd rather just use draft capital to try to trade up. Easier said than done. I know I'm saying simply get a better player, but I would either want to go for a guy who is higher risk, higher reward with the second first-round pick, or try to move up to guarantee that you can get someone just a little bit better, even if you have to pay a premium. You need to try to go for game breakers, and you really do need to try to fill in that scoring gap.
I don't think this draft is shaping up to the point where that's going to be possible. Like if the Islanders pick
rinse repeat every NHL draft.
Yeah, if you're picking around 20 in this particular draft, there's still going to be some very enticing options there to the point where I don't think you need to panic. I almost had the opposite thought. If you get around to the Islanders pick and Simashev is like the most quote unquote tantalizing prospect there, I'd be calling around for a trade back. Just let's get some extra capital, maybe get an extra second-round pick and take another uninspiring prospect. And that's not to say Simashev's a bad prospect. The Red Wings are so desperately at the point of, like you said, they need to swing. They don't need more middle pairing defensemen. They don't need more third line forwards. You know, historically speaking, if you're talking draft value, if you're picking at like pick 20 and you get a number 4 defenseman, you're doing pretty good. Like if he's an everyday regular and he's a legit good number 4 defenseman or like a third line forward, you're happy with that pick. I think that mentality from a value standpoint holds up, but from a team building standpoint, I think the Red Wings need to throw that right the hell out the window. They don't need NHL players with these picks. They need top end guys. They need to swing for the possibility. I think Simashev is a very good bet to be an effective everyday NHL player. That is definitely not what the Red Wings need right now. They need to take off the top of my head, I don't know what other prospects will fall around that area. We've already done a profile on him, so I'll bring him up. I would rather take an Andrew Crystal there. I think Simashev's a way better bet to make the NHL. So when people are radioing me in 5 years when Andrew Crystal's playing in the AHL and Simashev's like a number 3-4 defenseman on the Islanders or whatever, I understand the risk that comes with that, but that's not what they need. That is so not what the Red Wings need right now. This is when you have 2 first-round picks and it's the second first-round pick, the perfect time to gamble. And then you factor in all the circumstance around the Red Wings roster, prospect system right now. Yeah. Who's the highest upside there? Risks be damned.
Yeah, he's certainly an interesting prospect. Like, I think his defensive game is actually very, very good. And that's probably why he played in the KHL. Like, for someone to do that at 17, I mean, he didn't produce anything at that level, but he's buried on a good team. And I can totally understand why some people are super high on him and some people are a little bit more cautiously optimistic about him in this draft and as an NHL player. But if we're talking specifically about the Red Wings, they don't need a left-handed shooting defenseman.
See, where I'm landing on this is it's not my preference, and I don't disagree with what you said, but I always try to counteract it by whenever I feel certain about something in the draft, I'm like, oh, now I know I'm going down the wrong path because drafts are just such a crapshoot. So I'm looking at the other side of the coin here by saying, if this guy's could project as a solid 3-4 defenseman, like it's a little plain Jane, it's a little bit of like a vanilla cone when you thought you were getting a whole DQ blizzard. But, you know, that's the kind of meat and potatoes that a solid, consistently winning team is built on. Yes, looking at the pipeline right now, they have a lot to sort out on the left side and not enough to work with on the right side. But prospect pools change, and they change in a flash, and you don't know what's going to happen. And I know that I'm saying Yzerman's going to wave a wand and things are going to look different, but you just don't know what's going to happen. So if they do go with a Simashev, I'm not upset. I look at him and he doesn't raise flags for me like some other prospects in the past where you're like, no, under no circumstance do I want this guy because I think he's a dud or I think he's just big and that's why he excelled in the past. He comes in for me, like you said, Evan, I think his tools are pretty impressive. He's not flashy in any single way. And I wonder if, and I'm very, very, very guilty of this if it's true, I wonder if we're not looking at the top of this draft, the potential generational talent at the top, all the fantastic picks that are going to come after the small gap, and then the Red Wings first of their 2 first-round picks. I wonder if we're not trying to make something out of nothing. We're trying to make Detroit's own version of a home run in this draft when it just might not be there. They might have to go for the plain Jane meat and potatoes, especially with their second of their 2 first-round picks. Because
if they took Will Smith and Simashev with their first 2 picks, I wouldn't be upset at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's because they got Will Smith, but you know, it might be, you know, Danielson Simashev. You joked before the podcast, Brad. Like that could be it.
That could be it. That would leave me a little uninspired, but
that's what I'm saying.
But
like
the thing is, I'm not saying like you don't have to settle for a Simashev. Like I understand this draft because there's 2 things at play here. One, you're right about the perception of this draft is going to probably put expectations on the Islanders pick a little higher than they should be. Because it's like, oh, it's such a good draft. We're going to get a 10th overall value at pick 20, which just isn't true. At least not likely.
You could, but yeah, not likely.
Not likely. It'll be equally as unlikely in every other draft. But there's enough options there. You don't have to settle for the quote-unquote safe pick. Because what I think is happening in this draft is kind of the inverse, where there's such a lack of high-end defensemen in this draft that the pretty good ones are getting elevated because of positional premium. Like, is Simashev really a first-round pick in this draft? Maybe, maybe not. But if this was in previous drafts, I don't think he's getting quite the attention he is now because people are just like, well, I can't have my first-round mock be 26 forwards, right? And I think there's a little bit of that going on. So, again, I don't hate him as a player. I like him as a player. I just think, again, specific to the Red Wings, because I think as a late first-round pick, he's perfectly justifiable. Not a guy I would pick, but perfectly justifiable. But the Red Wings specifically, Walman's locked up for a bunch more years. Maatta signed an extension. Edvinsson's going to be around for a while. Johansson's coming up. Wallander's coming up. Even if Wallander ends up on the right side, that's still 4 left-handed D, not factoring in if you have any faith in McIsaac, Sabrango, Vero jumping up. And to be clear, I don't think that level of prospect is good enough to justify not picking a left-handed defenseman if he's there. Mm-hmm. But you don't know if Wallander's going to the right side. You don't know if Johansson's going to the right side. You know Edvinsson's not. You know Walman's not. And even beyond positional need, Red Wings need top-end players. They need to swing. They need to identify take the first 19 or so picks out of the draft, who is the most talented player left on the board. Position be damned. Ideally not left defense, but position be damned. Pick that guy.
So you're saying Andrew Crystal with the second pick then?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Very possible. Again, his talented includes skating, Ryan.
Oh, okay.
So I factor that into my decision because there's a million players. There's a Braden Yager slip because of, concerns or something like that. And, you could probably pick a half dozen guys off the USNTDP who might fit into that category. Does Gabe Perron make some sense there? Which I think for Detroit actually would make a lot of sense. And I think he will be available in that range. So not that I don't like Simashev and I don't want anybody coming away thinking that. I really don't like him as the Red Wings pick. I like the player, despite not being anything special. There is absolute value in good, all-around middle six defenseman, which is what I think he's going to be. Lots of value in that, especially in that range in the draft. Again, I just don't think that's what the Red Wings should be looking for here.
So equal parts a prospect profile in Dimitriy Simashev, but also a philosophical discussion on what decision the Red Wings are going to have to make, especially with a, mid to late mid first round pick that will be the second of their two from the Islanders. So, yeah, I think it's ultimately I do agree with both of you. I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit. I think it's good to have that thought exercise, but my thinking it aligns with what you mentioned, Brad. Loath though I am to say it, I think you're right in that I would like to see the Red Wings swing some more, but we'll see how it shakes out. Maybe Florida, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, they all do Detroit a favor and they move that Islanders pick up. So Yager looks a little bit more likely or someone like that. So
yeah, how depressing is it knowing that Florida, Buffalo, and Pittsburgh wins right now are super valuable, and the Red Wings' next 2 friggin' games, while they're on a heater, is the Sabres and the Penguins? Do you know how much I'm sick of this scenario?
Well, if I know anything about laws of averages, that means we're bound to return to it. So maybe
there's some other laws that I think are going to trump that, which is the ones that make us sad.
Yeah. I am so sick of these year-end scenarios. I hate this so much.
It's because every team fighting for a wild card spot right now is that gif of the elephant stumbling and flipping over down into a kiddie pool and accidentally landing where they were aiming in the first place while looking like complete fools doing so. They're all just tripping over their own feet. Like they're all in collapsing in the worst ways. The difference between the bona fide playoff teams and the wild card playoff teams in the East is so freaking funny. Like, how is Pittsburgh in their goaltending one of the likely front runners for an Eastern wild card spot? The only thing that's saving them right now is one of those two teams is going to play Carolina, and they have no left wingers left at all.
It's going to be like one of these teams is going to trip and fall in the playoffs and take whomever they play in the first round of 7 games. Like, it's going to be just something dumb like that because that's how hockey works.
You ever seen that gif of the kid falling down the slide just in a comical fashion and then ends up in the pool?
The same thing as the elephant gif.
And it just comes up and says, in.
Yep.
That is the Eastern playoff race
That's
now.
100% what it is. Yeah. Anyways, that is the draft. That's a small commentary on the Eastern wildcard playoff race. So we'll see how that all shakes out. Some more NHL news that broke legitimately as we were about to record. So we're working with the information that we have right now. And I want to qualify this by saying we are not the experts on this. Craig Morgan, who does excellent coverage out in Phoenix, at Craig S. Morgan on Twitter, writes for GoPhoenix.com. That's your go-to here. And I am absolutely following Craig Morgan and his updates on what's happening in Arizona and potentially Tempe. So in general, what's happened is this: the Coyotes and the development firm that they're working with have launched a $2.3 billion lawsuit against the city of Phoenix. This suit is reportedly for damages caused by Phoenix's legal filing on March 27th for a breach of contract, which is, quote, asking the court to rescind Tempe's recent zoning and land use changes and prohibit future residential uses in an area that the FAA says is incompatible with residential development. Now, trying not to get too much of this wrong or fuzzy, but I think the gist of it is the Coyotes are trying to build this brand new development that they've been hoping to get approved. I think there's a referendum next month in the city of Tempe. The neighboring city of Phoenix gave them assurances in the past that they wouldn't cause a stink based on basically flight paths from a nearby airport and the noise pollution and whether or not residential buildings, which would be part of the development, can be built there, et cetera. They gave them assurances that they wouldn't file any kind of claims or cause a disruption on that front. Reportedly, according to the Coyotes and their development firm, this is what the city of Phoenix actually ended up doing. And their allegation is that this isn't actually about flight paths because they have already worked in mitigating factors, and there are other buildings that have been given exemptions in the past. It's that Phoenix wants to keep their downtown sports complex monopoly. The Suns play there, and what's it called? The Talking Stick Arena right now. Downtown Phoenix is where sports live right now in Arizona, and they don't want a competing complex in neighboring Tempe. So it's all a messy situation. And at its presentation, I understand the response to say, "Oh God, the Coyotes! What another screw up! Like this team can't get."
They're clapping back at the city. I love it.
I think this is messy, but this is what they have to do, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't even know who's right and who's wrong here. Like this is he said, she said, and you have to take everything with a big fat grain of salt. But if what they're alleging is even 1/4 true, then yeah, you have to protect your development and the future of your team. Like this is. They're not building.
Billions of dollars are at stake, and moving a team is at stake. Really, like the future of the Arizona Coyotes really sort of hinge on this development going through. Like if it doesn't, they're the Houston Coyotes.
Absolutely. And I understand if this was like Tempe, like the city of Tempe filing this complaint, then the Coyotes are dead in the water.
Yeah. Then you're screwed.
They just spent an era fighting Glendale, which is where their arena was. But no, this is a neighboring city. If
exerting its bureaucratic sort of muscle over the Coyotes is what it seems like to me.
Yeah, if that's what's true, then yeah, that's exactly what it is. So, and honestly, if the May referendum goes through and the people who this would affect give this its approval, and I'm all for the democratic process and asking the people what they want, and they give it its approval, and the mitigating factors for whatever flight paths, whatever, that's all actually worked into the land and the zoning, and they can develop it as they've planned it. And it is going to come with I think a 30-year non-relocation agreement, maybe 20 or 30-year non-relocation agreement.
I'm still not convinced.
Yeah.
That's still not long enough.
Yeah, contracts can all be broken. Then you can see the Coyotes they're looking at the finish line. It is, in my mind, the last possible straw. Like if this development doesn't get approved, then
that's it.
That's it. But this, to me, it's not. I don't think it's fair to categorize this as, oh, the Coyotes have screwed this up again. They wouldn't let the guys in the locker room have pizza during a playoff game at intermission. This is an external factor trying to mess up their plans.
Well, it's basically the city of Phoenix reneging on their deal to say, yeah, we're not going to cause a stink about this.
Yeah.
And now they are. So good on Arizona and their team or development team, whatever the heck they're called, to, move this to litigation. Like, that's what you got to do.
And I'm looking at you because I can sense Brad's sullen, grumpy face next to me. Find something that Brad loves talking about more than the continued struggle to keep the Coyotes in Arizona.
Yeah, my friend wrote the bar, so I'm basically a lawyer.
That's right. My friend's friend wrote the bar.
There you go.
Hit us, Brad. What do you have?
No.
Yeah, that's fair. We don't actually want to hear from you on this one. I don't know. I kind of changed my tune on the Coyotes. Like, they're so close.
To me, it's a good sign that they're willing to, go up against the city of Phoenix on this and not just roll over and say, well, we tried. There's no way around this. But it'll be very interesting to see how this all shakes out. The only real winners are the lawyers.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
They're making almost Evan money at this point.
We're in the wrong business.
Me too.
The one thing I will say positive about this situation is this doesn't change my view of this situation in any matter for the better or worse.
Well,
that's a win in your book.
At the end of the day, they'd still be in Arizona.
Which is the fundamental problem.
If story is about Phoenix or the Coyotes and sentiment when walking away is neutral, that qualifies as a win.
Yeah.
Think of the last time you heard a story about the Coyotes and it wasn't, oh my God, what are they doing over there? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a whole week since we had one of those.
Yeah, wow.
Regardless, like I said, it's developing. I'm sure more is going to come to light. I don't know who's, by all legal rights, correct and incorrect here. But I just kind of wanted to put a little bit of cold water on, the Coyotes messed this one up. They have a lot of problems that they have to sort out organizationally and otherwise. But this to me felt...
And legally.
That's right.
All the pillars are covered right now.
It's not dull over there.
No.
And according to you, it's a great place to golf. So
That's why they never make the playoffs.
All right. Shall we get into overtime? Overtime on this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast is proudly brought to you by our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/Winged Wheel Podcast. If you want to join the Dub Club, everything we do on the show, including Winged Wheel Podcast Day at the LCA and our support for the Jamie Daniels Foundation, is almost completely supported and funded by our Patreon supporters. Anytime we can improve the show or do anything to make it better, it's because of our patrons. They get great benefits such as access to our Winged Wheel Podcast official Discord community. They're entered into all of our giveaways. We've given away 2 tickets to every Detroit Red Wings home game this season, and the vast majority of them have gone to Patreon supporters. And they get access to our Patreon exclusive bonus episodes, which record right after these, which are a romp. They're a good time. They're a little ridiculous. They're more fun than we have on the show, but there's a reason those ones are locked away. But they're a good time if you want to hear us hang out, have some more fun. Patreon.com/Winged Wheel Podcast if you want to join the Dub Club. Jonathan Melwish says, "Hi, gents. As the free agent pool is not going as strong this year, do you see the Wings doing more offseason trades with the draft capital we have, or just use it to move up and down the draft board?"
Oh, man, I don't know. Because the free agent list is uninspiring, but as of now, so is the trade market, unless there's a name we just don't have any clue about that could be on the market. Again, the Red Wings aren't in a position to be trading for, middle 6 guys, middle pairing guys. They need top line talent. And that's just not out there in any capacity right now. And I know that's a gloomy answer because the follow-up question is, how do the Red Wings fix that problem? And my answer right now is, I don't know. I'm looking long and hard. I've mentioned it before, and I think it was probably a month or 2 ago, but I'm looking long and hard at what Winnipeg's going to do this offseason because I think that's where some things could shake loose.
Norris Seider says, "Are there any Ole Maatta / Jake Walman type sneaky good free agents out there that you guys would like to see Steve Yzerman pursue this offseason?"
Not to their talent level, but I think there's a couple defensemen out there who fit direct needs for the Red Wings. I don't think any of them are particularly exceptional. Like I've talked about, Radko Gudas would be a perfect fit for where the Red Wings are at right now. They need a right shot defenseman. They need to get meaner, tougher. He checks all those boxes without being an absolute liability.
In a different free agent pool, I'd say Damon Severson, but he's just going to be, I don't think he's like a depth name by any means, But I think if this was like a really strong free agency pool, you might be able to get him for cheaper. But he's going to be the guy who's going to be priced through the roof because there's not a lot of competition with him, in my mind.
Remember when the Red Wings signed Mike Green?
That's right. And they almost got a first-round pick for him like 7 times. One time he literally broke his neck before the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a good one. In a hypothetical world, this is from Give Walman the Heart. In a hypothetical world where the NHL, if the NHL were to rig the draft lottery, who would they give Bedard to?
Oh, that's good because my immediate thought goes to Vancouver, but I don't think the NHL would want him on the West Coast.
You know the answer to this one. There's one of 2 answers, which I think it would be.
I don't think it's as obvious as you think it might be. Hold on, I'm just looking.
2 answers.
Okay, I know Chicago's the answer here, which
Yeah.
pisses me off. So I want to get another answer.
When Chicago is good, the dollars pile up fast.
Underrated one that I don't think people would give enough credit to looking at this. East Coast market, big market, rabid fan base.
Red Wings?
Philly.
Yeah.
Philly,
would be a
he'd
really good
save
one.
the franchise. He'd turn it around.
That's a great location for TV market, for direct impact because it's right near the Rangers, Islanders, Devils, Bruins. It's going to pull in from a lot of other big markets.
gives competition to those teams.
A lot of huge rivalries could be born for that. Again, I wish no success to the Flyers, but if we're talking what's best for the NHL, I think Philly would be very high on that list.
I will say the other answer besides Chicago that I had in mind, although I agree Philly is a sneaky good one, is Montreal. I just think, like, yes, there are the answers like, Columbus or San Jose or Arizona even. But I just think the NHL...
Well, Arizona solves a couple problems.
Yeah, they do.
Arizona was mine because if Gary, wants to work in his selfish best interest and saving his battle, keeping a team in Arizona, that would be the one for me.
But Arizona's the one that solves the most problems, but Philly and Chicago make the most money.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think they already have McDavid in a not Eastern time zone, and I think they'll want, if they could control it, they would put Bedard in an Eastern time zone. Coyote season tickets in Tempe says, it's my opinion today, as it was in 2020, that it was a mistake to take Wallinder over Peterka. I think by this time next year, it's possible that opinion could change. Does the Winged Wheel podcast crew share my opinions of 2020 and today? And do they think their opinions, whatever those might be, will change by the end of the 23-24 season? I actually took Wallinder in a mock draft, but I will say I thought Peterka would have gone. Like, I was higher on Peterka, but I didn't mind Wallinder at all. And I don't disagree that things could still flip.
Oh, I really hope they flip. Peterka had a good rookie season in the NHL. Did, smash any walls down offensively. I know I was higher on Peterka going into the draft. So, yeah, I mean, a gigantic offensive defenseman would definitely have more value than a third line forward. So the setting is here for Wallinder to be the more valuable player, but I don't think we're there yet because Peterka is already doing what he's doing in the NHL.
Okay. Question from Join the Dark Sider says, hey, gents, haven't posted in a while. A few weeks ago, I went to the Wings at Preds game. Was NHL Arena 15 for me. That's awesome. Goal is to hit all 32 eventually. Prioritize Arizona because then they're going to have a different one.
Does he have to go twice then?
Well, wait, yeah, maybe if it's an area, if both of the arenas are in Arizona. We don't know yet. With that being said, how many NHL arenas have you each been to outside of the Joe or LCA? What's been the best? What's been the worst? For me, the best was the Bell Center, and worst, believe it or not, was Ball Arena in Denver. Sure, nice sightlines, but the concourse sucked. And side question, I've been to Gila River and Glendale a few years ago. Do I have to go to Mullet now? Yeah, you do. I think you do. Just because it's cool as hell. Stay fresh cheese bags.
I've been to the Bell Center in Montreal, Maple Leaf Gardens, and now Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. I've been to whatever the hell the Sabres Arena is called now. I don't know. It's changed. The name of that arena has changed like 9 times in my lifetime. And I've been to Madison Square Garden.
I want to do MSG.
Me too.
Just don't do what I did.
Propose?
It was a Tuesday night game. Again.
One wife is enough.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't do another wedding planning. I'm already dying on this one.
It was a Tuesday night game against Nashville. That was not one of the more inspired crowds I've ever seen in my life.
I've done obviously the Joe and the LCA. I've been to the Bell Center not during a game, and that's it. I came close when we were in Florida. The Red Wings were actually playing just down the road, and we had the option of going, but we also had really, really, really great dinner reservations.
Understandable.
And they lost the game anyways, so I was happy we chose to keep our dinner reservations.
Buffalo has a sneaky nice arena.
Yeah,
I really liked their arena. I mean, we sat like 16 rows up, and they were like cost me $25 a ticket. But yeah, like huge concourse. The only thing that sucks is everybody goes down those elevators at the end.
Yeah.
So it's not. That was a big oversight. Scotiabank, so Toronto's arena is a dump.
I hate that place.
That
was
place
bottom of my
sucks.
list. I wouldn't call it a dump.
It's a dump.
But two things. You hear that, Steve? It's a dump. It's an absolute pain in the ass to get to the arena because you're either paying like $50 literally for parking or you're parked a mile away. And let me tell you, walking through Toronto near Lake Ontario in the middle of winter
sucks.
Not pleasant.
Yeah.
And yeah, inside the arena, the atmosphere is not great, but I know Toronto's had that rep forever.
Concourse is tight. It reminds me of the Joe, but like doesn't have that like rustic charm.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the Bell Center. I was a little spoiled because the game I was at was near the end, if not the very last game of the regular season, and it had like massive playoff implications for Montreal, and it was against Toronto. So like it was a crazy atmosphere, but yeah, and even around the arena was super cool. So the Rangers was the most boring, but that was my fault because of the game I picked. Buffalo, every time I've went, I've had a great time. Every time I've went to Toronto for a non-Wings game has been boring as hell. And yeah, the Bell Center was crazy.
Nick Boyd says, hey gang, hopefully not too late, but how far do you think this Red Wings team can realistically get as they are today with only their current prospect pool? In other words, trades and free agent signings are now illegal for the foreseeable future. Does our organization as it stands get us back to the promised land? Thanks and go Wings.
So if everybody pans out and everything goes as well, second round of the playoffs, maybe conference finals if Husso goes on a heater.
Playoff, like let's say, yeah, Kasper turns into a top 6 center. The wingers all turn out. Whoever
but
they
there's
draft.
not that many wingers. Like that's where they're not going to have a top line forward because if Mazur and Kasper both pan out to exactly what you want, or realistically what they could be, you still have Larkin and Raymond on your top line, Kasper and Mazur on your second line.
The one sort of wild card there for me is Bachelnikov.
Yeah.
What would be his like home run swing? Like is he like a 40 goal guy? Like I have no idea.
Yeah. And Mazur's a guy who we'll talk about next episode as well. He made his AHL debut. So that's something that we have to cover. And more on that to come. Yeah, I agree. I think they'll get into the playoffs. They could make some noise if the team is playing together really well. I could see them being a dangerous team. We've seen this team be, better than the sum of their parts, but it's hard to say for sure anything more than that because there aren't really game breakers.
Yeah, the top end talent's just not there to compete with the big boys. I think if you look at a lot of the playoff teams right now, like the 2 wild cards in the East, maybe even Boston on the downswing, the Devils, even that's getting hard to say, but like the teams that aren't super top heavy, the Red Wings can definitely go punch per punch depth wise. And I think they're actually really close to doing that now. So having, a fully established Wallinder, Kasper, Mazur, Edvinsson will go a real long way into making those playoff series maybe tip in the Red Wings' favor. But when they get up against the Tampa's and even the Carolinas right now, and the Rangers, I have a real hard time seeing the Red Wings winning those series with what they have.
Well, we'll talk after July, and then maybe that's a good question to have again. All right, last question here is from Sean Trainer, and it is, Evan, what's on your phone right now?
Most likely, I'll be laying up all 4 days. Dustin Johnson on the new 13th hole at Augusta.
Sean, I want you to know that I saved that question until Evan picked up his phone, but thank you for that. All right, folks, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Winged Wheel podcast. We are so excited to see all of you on Saturday. those of you who are coming to Winged Wheel Podcast Day at the LCA, and even if you're not coming to the post-game event, come say hi at the concourse. If you're a ticket holder, you should be getting an email sometime tomorrow from the Red Wings, so keep an eye out for that. It'll have more information. For now, we'd like to thank all of our listeners, our name-level sponsors, Arjun Shankar, Yves Bartels on behalf of the Sarah Grand Foundation, Aikfer, Bertuzzi is straight up missing, Nick Perks, Icon, We Are Geelong, the greatest team of all, Glenn Brabham, Yuka Nightorp, Aiden White, Keenan O'Donohue, Yanni Burgers, Meals on Wheels, Matthew M. Rice, Croner's Left Knee, 10 Years of Fanatics, Babe Landeskog, Carl Brutanen Nanolewski, Chimmy, Chris P., Citizen High Five, Connor Scovey, Coyote Season Tickets in Tempe, Denny's Gamer Girl, Derek Enstam, Detroit Rob, DJ Denton, Fanatics Sucks, Give Blood Fight Probert, Hassam Al Qassem, Jay Gollum, Jacob Turner, Joel Miranda, Kalen Wood, Kevin James, King Tone, Las Ensaladas Picantes, Marcus, Matt McKay, Matt Penzine, Michael Edlund, Nicholas Fritz, R.A., Red 3, Ryan Hubbard, Scott Martin, Send It Seawolf, That's What I Appreciates About You, Wallman's Elite Dancing D, General Andy Bohan of the Cheesebag Army, Sam Bankson, #1 Red Guys fan, Aaron, Adam Gowitzka, Adam Rose, Antonio Gracias, Ben Baird, noted Philip Zadina Whisperer, and Alex Nedeljkovic Truther, Brad Simmons, Brian Vasha, CJ Wilkinson, Connor Leighton, Corey Prida, Darren Fick, Forever and Always Bertuzzi's Lost Tooth, Frank Stanley, George's Biggest Fan, Grand Rapids Hockey Guy, Griffey Boy, Instructions Unclear, Cheesebag No Longer Fresh, James Laporte, Jeremiah Dobo, JM Rhapsody, John Evans, John Engels, Josh Yelton, Kevin McCracken, Quaz, Lieutenant Matt S. of the Cheesebag Army, Linda Hull, Matt Keeler, Maximilian, Melissa Erickson, Norris Seider, Ophelia, Reed, the Prophet of the Towering Chungus, Stephen, Tatar Sauce, the Hodag, and Hunter. Thank you all so very much, and we'll talk to you on Sunday. Well, actually, we'll see you Saturday first.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockeytown Evan.